new Wall Street Journal poll shows President Trump setting a new approval record, though he is still slightly underwater at 47% approval, 49% disapproval. Nevertheless, for the GOP, the timing couldn't be better. The findings point to an energized electorate, the Wall Street Journal points out, buffeted by dynamics that bring great uncertainty to the outcome of an election just 2 weeks away. Let's bring in Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume to discuss. Good to have you with us, Brit.
Thank you, Shannon. Glad to be here.
Okay, so it's odd for the president and for his backers to be celebrating. He's still underwater, but for him, this is a peak at his approval rating, and it's just heading into the midterms. Is he peaking at the right time?
Well, presidential approval ratings matter in midterms, particularly a president's first midterm. And it does appear from not just this Wall Street Journal poll, but other polling that the president's approval rating has ticked up a bit. It's still, as the Wall Street Journal indicates, underwater, but it's better than it was, and really that does help Republican candidates in this upcoming election for sure.
Well, and the Wall Street Journal says over the last couple of weeks there's been this closure in key swing districts. When they talk about how this gap has closed up, they say in districts rated as the most competitive by the nonpartisan Cook Political Report, the parties are dead even on the question of which one should control Congress. In last month's poll, Democrats led that same question by 13 percentage points among registered voters and 6 points among likely voters. I mean, for the GOP, that's a gap you want to see close right before people head to the polls.
It is, and there are two things to remember. Races tighten as you get closer to Election Day. That's usually the pattern. But clearly there was a Kavanaugh effect on Republican voters and perhaps to some extent on Democratic voters. But Democratic voters were so motivated already that it's a little hard for me to believe that they got much extra out of that. They were hyped up to vote. But it looks like the GOP, a lot of GOP voters may now feel that way as well. And I'm hearing a lot, that Trump has that hardcore supporters for whom he can do nothing wrong. But there's another category of voters, and I run into them all the time when I'm away from Washington, who say things like, I don't like this guy, but I love what he's doing. I hear that all the time from various different kinds of people in various different situations. And I think that's a factor out there, and it may then, therefore, it may be showing up in his approval rating to some extent, and it may show up in support for congressional candidates running as Republicans.
I had someone say the exact same thing to me last week, and they were very aware of the things that he's doing with rolling back regs. This was a business owner, about federal judges, the bench. I mean, people are paying attention. This is another one. There's been a lot made about suburban women, females, mothers, families, how they would vote. Also in the polling, the Wall Street Journal says this: the poll may explain why the competitive swing districts that will determine control of the House are mostly in suburban districts, and among suburban residents, the parties are virtually tied. 44% favor GOP control and 45% favor a Democratic Congress.
And that doubtless owes something to the fact that, while the president and his party don't do too well among women, for sure, particularly suburban women, they do quite well among suburban men. That may be sufficient to offset that advantage. So this could turn out to be, even in the House, a much closer affair than we've imagined.
We'll see. We're biting our nails at this point.
Well, we get so close. We got a little while to go here.
And listen, 2 weeks in politics can be an eternity. Who knows how many scandals will erupt between now and then. I want to ask you, too, about the impact on the House, because if the Democrats retake it, a lot of things will change over there. A lot of these are the investigations that have been going on, led by Devin Nunes and other top Republicans, Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, and others. Byron York writes a very interesting piece, and he points out the things that America wouldn't know if not for these investigations. Just a partial list we have here. The role that dossier played in the FBI investigation, who funded the dossier, the anti-Trump bias of some of the top FBI officials involved with this whole thing, Obama officials unmasking Trump officials and intel intercepts, and the role of Fusion GPS.
That's a pretty extensive list. Yeah. And those are all things that were uncovered by the House Intelligence Committee, which, under Devin Nunes, which carried on its investigation the fact of stern and unflinching Democratic resistance to everything they did, with Adam Schiff, who's the ranking Democrat on the committee, running out to the cameras and microphones all the time with a very sympathetic media audience, and yet the committee was able to unearth all that stuff, and we wouldn't know it without it. And what's surprising to me is the antipathy toward him, not just among liberals and Democrats, which you would kind of expect, but even among some Republicans. And I think he's been unfairly maligned, and the media coverage of him has been atrocious.
Well, and quickly, it's not just that these investigations would grind to a screeching halt if Democrats were
now go the other way.
Committees. How much do you think the president would actually then be a target?
Well, I think the president would be a constant target. If the Democrats get control of the House, I'm not sure whether they'll try to impeach him. Some members will want to. I'm not sure how far that will go. But there'll be an endless series of investigations and claims and charges and testimony. And unlike the Nunes investigation, these investigations are likely to receive very sympathetic and extensive media coverage.
It'll be interesting to watch the differences if that indeed happens. Brett, thank you very much.